Hey there guys, you're here with Bo and welcome to another video. And today we're going to be discussing an overall regulatory update, the status on what is going on in the United States. You know, we've been following that pretty closely about what's going on because it is a big deal to the Bitcoin and crypto industry. So today we're going to be looking over some statements from some prominent Republicans and Democrats and their stance on Bitcoin and crypto. You might be surprised, some are positive and some are quite negative. So we're going to be covering some of these recent statements to try and get an overall feel for how Bitcoin and crypto is progressing in the United States since Donald Trump's original tweet and then Steve Mnuchin coming out as well. So stick around guys, thank you for tuning in and let's get started. Welcome back to the video guys. You are here with Bo Stoner from Cryptocurrency Australia, the channel where Bitcoin economics and politics comes together. Now just before we get started guys, I just want to let you know that I've been really busy lately with some things going on and some work I've been doing and some potential work coming. So I do apologize for the inconsistency of the content. My priority at the moment is some other things going on. So I'm not quite sure on how much content or how consistent the content is going to be in the days and weeks to come. It may be a little sporadic, so I do apologize for that. It really just depends on how much I've got going on, and I could be getting busier and busier with some other stuff on the side coming soon. So we're just going to have to wait to see. So I do apologize for the inconsistency, guys, but I will continue to create content as often as I possibly can. Now, that being said, let's get into this. First article we're going to cover is this small segment here by Congressman Patrick McHenry. He is a Republican, and he recently said that Bitcoin can't be killed. He said the US government has no capacity to effectively destroy the idea, he told CNBC. McHenry is a member of the Financial Services Committee. Now, that is important because this committee is also what is working on the regulations and the probe, essentially, into Facebook's Libra. He said he believes its decentralized distributed ledger makes it invulnerable compared with centralized tokens such as Facebook Coin. He stressed how even the Chinese with their firewall and their extreme intervention on their society cannot kill Bitcoin. And he's absolutely right. And as you'll see soon, this Patrick McHenry is quite is quite up to speed on Bitcoin and crypto. His fundamental understanding is very good, and his pro-innovation stance is actually very refreshing because, you know, there's one thing that cannot be changed, and that is the cost efficiencies that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and distributed ledgers provide. One such example that is consistently cited, and it is a good example, is overseas remittances, where the sender and recipient, the sender will send money overseas, typically back to a family member. So there's a foreign worker working in a country, let's just use United States for example, wants to send some money back to, say, Mexico. Overseas remittances are very expensive, and prior to Bitcoin and crypto pushing that industry to innovate and essentially stop ripping off these people who are trying to send money overseas, prior to Bitcoin and crypto, I mean, the fees would be enormous. I believe up to 20% of the total money sent, and could take up to a week. And here you have Bitcoin and crypto come along where you can essentially send any amount of money for near zero cost, and it would take, you know, between 5 minutes to an hour, depending on the blockchain. Essentially how busy the blockchain was. So incredible advancements in financial technology brought by Bitcoin and crypto that cannot be denied. But let's look into a little bit more information about Patrick McHenry and some other things that he has recently said. Moving on to a video here, and guys, this is on Trace Mayer's Twitter account. Please make sure you go and follow Trace Mayer on Twitter at Trace Mayer. An incredible voice and knowledge in the Bitcoin and crypto space.
The world that Satoshi Nakamoto, author of the Bitcoin white paper, envisioned, and others are building, is an unstoppable force. We should not attempt to deter this innovation, and governments cannot stop this innovation. And those that have tried have already failed. So the question then becomes, what are American policymakers going to do to meet the challenges and the opportunities of this new world of innovation? Some politicians want us to live in a permission-based society where you need to come to government Ask for its blessing before you can begin to even think about innovating. Those are the politicians that would rather kill it before it grows. But there are others who believe in the vibrancy of American ingenuity, American innovation, that recognizes our economy is built off of generations of entrepreneurs and innovators through competition, through testing, through tinkering, through iterating, got us here today.
Very interesting, guys. Before we kind of break this down, let's listen to another one here with an interview he gave on CNBC Squawk Box.
The question, though, long term, do you think that regulators and politicians like yourself will allow the emergence and the sort of these new types of currencies if they don't look a lot like the regulations and guardrails that we currently have around fiat currency and money?
Well, I think there is no capacity to kill Bitcoin. Even the Chinese, with their firewall and their extreme intervention in their society, could not kill Bitcoin. So a distributed ledger, full and open, as in the essence of Bitcoin as a first mover in this space, the developer of this technology of blockchain and digital currencies.
Let me just ask you a question related to that, because Bitcoin has fallen in large part.
But my point here is you can't kill Bitcoin, but new iterations of this that are trying to mimic it, that are not fully distributed, that are not fully open, there are different mechanisms to kill it.
But let me ask you a question, Congressman. In the United States, for example, you say you can't kill Bitcoin, and to some degree I agree with you, and to some degree I don't. If you said right now that Coinbase cannot accept money from an American citizen, if you said that any of these wallets can't accept money, you would affect. I'm not saying you'd shut down Bitcoin. Bitcoin would exist somewhere, and it would be sort of in a sort of a dark web kind of situation. But it effectively would make it very, very difficult for the mainstream to use it.
Sure, but I mean, how mainstream is that right now? How mainstream is Bitcoin right now?
Well, but that's the question. If it ever gets mainstream, if it ever gets to escape velocity, does Congress, do regulators say, you know what, actually, in the same way that you're looking at Libra as closely as you are, and this is going to happen at the G7 meeting as well, do people say, you know what, we can't have that? Bitcoin will live in the shadows, but it's not going to live in the mainstream. And that's the question I think I have, and I think it's the question whether that Bitcoin investors have, and that's why the price of it has come down in the past literally 48 hours.
Yeah, so the price has come down to roughly $10,000. I haven't seen what it was trading at this morning.
Just below that.
But you're talking about something that was a joke 10 years ago that people were giving away for free. Not a joke, but people are giving away for free, is now trading at $10,000. You have 21 million coins. We can get into all that. But the essence of Bitcoin is what Libra and Facebook and corporates are trying to mimic.
Yeah, so some very interesting comments there from Patrick McHenry, and I want to break this down a bit because I think the presenter knows his stuff and was bringing up some very valid points. So, Libra aside, that's no surprise. We've been talking on this channel for a while that it's 99.9% probability Libra is not going to go ahead. But let's talk about Bitcoin a little bit and what he was referencing. So Patrick McHenry, what he was saying was logical, that Bitcoin cannot be killed. And that's true, it cannot be killed. But what the presenter was saying was, if you want to, essentially what he's alluding to was, if you want to, regulatory controls could become so strict that it becomes near impossible for exchanges to operate in the United States. Or it could become too costly. So there might be a pathway for compliance, but achieving that compliance may be so expensive that exchanges can't operate. So as a potential scenario, what happens if there's not many exchanges in the United States? That's limiting fiat gateways, right? That's limiting where people can send their money to an exchange to buy Bitcoin. What happens if there's not as much money coming into Bitcoin? I'm sure you can work that out. The next thing is ETFs, exchange traded funds. Now, we've talked about in this channel a long time on how big of a deal an ETF would be to Bitcoin. And I believe it's one of the biggest deals in terms of price that could happen to Bitcoin. I believe an ETF would send Bitcoin skyrocketing, absolutely skyrocketing, if approved. Because what it's doing is opening the gateway for serious money to come into Bitcoin, because it's easy and they don't have the same risks of having to go to an exchange, buy Bitcoin, and send it to a hardware wallet. They don't have to deal with that complexities. They can just buy some of the shares off the open market using existing brokerage accounts. You're talking about access to pension funds, to 401ks, to managed investments, to investment funds, fund managers. It goes on and on. People can easily gain access to Bitcoin and crypto using an existing brokerage account, as simple as buying some shares, let's just say, for example, of the NASDAQ. So an ETF is a really, really big deal, but it's not approved yet. It's not approved yet. And if regulations become too strict in the United States, it may never be approved. I mean, I'm not trying to be overly negative. I'm not at all. I'm trying to be rational, right? And I don't want to be a permeable. I don't want to be someone that's going to say, oh, Bitcoin to the moon forever and ever, because we have to be rational as this is an ever-changing environment. So one thing that is refreshing, though, is that Patrick McHenry seems overall positive, if not neutral, on Bitcoin, which is interesting. But let's now move on and have a look at another Republican senator, who is Kevin McCarthy, or Republican congressman, to see what he has to say about Bitcoin and crypto.
Means 30 days. It should not come in doubt about the debt ceiling in any shape or form. Your second question was about Libra, Facebook, and others. I'm very clear. I support crypto and Bitcoin. I support innovation. But I have real concerns about Libra because it's not decentralized. I like blockchain. I think the government should use blockchain. It gives you security. One of my greatest concerns is when it comes to privacy, but this is a fundamental difference in a philosophy of the way we look at something. And let me give you an example. I watched in the banking crisis, the Democrats' proposal was Dodd-Frank. Well, what it did, it took away a lot of community banks' opportunity for there. When I look at how they're dealing with tech companies, they want to either break them up or make them utilities. Two things happen. It does nothing to protect our privacy, and it takes away innovation. I watched the chair of the financial services introduce a bill to deny Libra to even go forward before they even had a hearing. That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. I believe in innovation, but I also believe that we should have a hearing on it, and maybe we need to put frameworks around it. But what I'm most concerned about is privacy. To me, our privacy when it's online, if there is something offering you something for free on the internet, you are not the client, you are the product. And your product is you and your information that they're selling to a third party and others. I wrote a New York Times.
There's some very interesting comments there from Kevin McCarthy, another neutral, if not positive, significant member of the United States Congress that is in favor of Bitcoin and crypto. So now we've got two. Now, remember that other one before was on the House Financial Services Committee. So we have two people that could potentially influence what the pathway forward for Bitcoin and crypto. Now, we know the last major move was from Steven Mnuchin, who announced that essentially they're creating a body of all the major regulatory financial firms, so things like the CFTC, the SEC, FINRA, and other organizations to oversee Bitcoin and crypto regulation. It's a pretty big deal. But what we could see from these other congressmen and women is some influence over where this kind of moves in the future. So it's interesting to be seeing who's coming out kind of for and against Bitcoin and crypto, because it gives us kind of an insight strategically into potential scenarios that could play out in the near future. But let's now go look at some statements, some very strong statements from a representative called Brad Sherman, who is a Democrat, I believe, in California. Let's have a read of this article here. Congressman Brad Sherman calls for a complete ban on cryptocurrency. He says Bitcoin only facilitates nefarious transactions. This is quite interesting coming from a Democrat, because typically Democrats are very progressive, especially at the moment, extremely progressive. So this is quite surprising to see from a Democrat, but let's have a read through. Congressman Brad Sherman, a vocal critic of the crypto industry, again called for a complete ban on cryptocurrencies. Sherman said Bitcoin had no real use other than to fund illicit activities, and warned about the risks cryptocurrencies pose to the political and financial stability in the United States, he said in an interview with Bloomberg. While the attitude of the US Congress towards Bitcoin has been mellowing down in the past couple of weeks, there is still a strong political current fighting for a world without cryptocurrencies. Congressman Brad Sherman, a ranking member of the House Financial Services Committee, seems to be leading that current. Sherman recently appeared on Bloomberg TV to discuss the dangers of Facebook's proposed cryptocurrency Libra, saying that it poses an unprecedented threat to the US economy and national security. However, the discussion quickly turned to cryptocurrencies in general, with Sherman saying that they serve no function unless it's to facilitate nefarious transactions. He believed that the US government should prohibit cryptocurrencies because they disempower the federal government. Sherman pointed out that there was a strong libertarian and anarchist train in the US that rejoices every time the federal government loses a bit of its power. This, he explained, only serves to weaken the country and goes against what both Democrat and Republican parties stand for. Reading on. To support his stance that Bitcoin is used to fund illegal activities, Sherman cited an unnamed peer-reviewed study that found 46% of its transactions are for people who are doing things illegally under US law. But unlike some of his Congress colleagues, Sherman doesn't seem to believe that Bitcoin is an unstoppable force. California's San Fernando Valley representative indicated that Bitcoin is just a symptom of a larger problem. Bitcoin is a small baby here. You can't buy a pack of gum for Bitcoin. It has to have an off-ramp so that you can convert it into a sovereign currency, he said on Bloomberg TV. So some very interesting comments there. Wants to make Bitcoin and crypto fully illegal in the United States. Some very, very strong comments. And like I said, this is quite fascinating, the fact that it's coming from a Democrat. That really surprises me. But he is correct in saying that, you need an off-ramp to convert it into a sovereign currency. We have that in the form of like these Bitcoin crypto debit cards. They're the best thing because there's just not a lot of merchants out there that accept Bitcoin at the moment. And in fact, since Bitcoin has become quite popular, the fees have gone up and transaction times are quite slow. The other day I had to wait around 20 minutes to send some Bitcoin to an exchange, right? So, to use in normal day-to-day transactions, we really need adoption of the layer 2 payment network, being the Lightning Network. So very interesting stuff coming there from this congressman. Look, overall, guys, the point of covering, what's going on in the United States is because, I certainly believe that a lot of the world follows what the United States does. The United States being the superpower that it is, the world is watching the US closely and should be watching the US closely on what they do with Bitcoin and crypto. So by bringing you these updates and these insights, it's giving us like an irrational, objective insight into what may be happening and what the Congress overall at a high level may be thinking and where this may be going. And that gives us better decision-making tools for the near future. So guys, I just want to say thank you for watching. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I apologize if the content may become a little bit less consistent and a bit more sporadic. I've just got some other things going on at the moment, but I'll continue to make content whenever I have the time and the ability to do so. So guys, I just want to say thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. If you enjoyed the video today, then please consider leaving a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then come on board and also click the notification icon so you're always kept up to date. Leave a comment and tell me your thoughts on today's content. Then check out this next interesting video picked just for you.